Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, a business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name is Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors now with websites and local SEO. I help new chiropractors get started. I help stuck chiropractors get unstuck, and I host this little podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the process of improvement. We're going to talk about how when you get started with everything, pretty much, you stink. And what to do about that, because I had mentioned this on a recent podcast where I was talking about how I don't think that you should focus on the things that you stink at. But when you get started, you stink at a lot of stuff. And I think that there's a flip side to that discussion, because I don't want to be overly discouraging. And I also actually don't want to just say something that's going to keep you from improving because of a misunderstanding of something I said. So I'm going to clarify some things. I'm going to give you some information on this podcast, and I think it's going to be helpful for those of you who are just getting started or kind of frustrated with where your skill level is right now as a chiropractor or as a small business owner. So that's what we're going to do on this podcast. Now, before I get into that, I do want to remind you guys, if you would like me to look at your website and SEO and give you some information, I'd be happy to do that through my website SEO review. I just had a guy the other day that emailed me asking me to look at his stuff. He's looking for some help with some local SEO, and I sent him a video, sent him the information. And when he emailed me back, he said, "Hey, everybody else I've talked to has been pitching me and selling me, and you just gave me some really good information." He's like, "You just, kind of told me what was going on, and I appreciate that." And that's how my assessments are. Like, I will tell you how I can help, or I'll give you some information. Most of the video really is just me telling you, this is what I'm seeing, this is what's going on, this is what affects what. And, usually at the end, I'll just say, "Hey, if I can, if you want to talk more, let me know." It's like, I'm not really a good salesman. So I am good at educating. I am good at informing. And if you would like me to look at your website and SEO, I'd be happy to do that. Just go to Rocket Chiro, request a free review. I'd be happy to look at it. If you're ready to get started with a better website, a local SEO, you can reach out to me through the Get Started page on Rocket Chiro. If you're looking for more information to go beyond the podcast, just more connection to me, more in-depth trainings, my Next Step program is a great place to get unstuck, or a great place to get started. If you're starting your new practice, it is a really, really great resource to just sort of help you minimize some of the mistakes that you're going to make when you first get started. So all that can be found at rocketchiro.com. So one of the things that I said that I have said a lot on this podcast, and I sort of feel like needed a clarification, is I have said that, people don't go from sucking to being great. People go from sucking at something to sucking less. And I believe that 100% to be true. And the other thing I said was that the things that are great in your life, like the things you're great at, are the things that are going to ultimately move the needle the most. Things you're mediocre at, things that you are terrible at, even if you go from being absolutely awful to being less awful at that thing, it's generally not going to be the thing that takes you to the promised land, the place you want to be. Your ultimate goals are not going to be, the foundation of that is not going to be on these mediocre things that you do. And so I do believe that that is true. But I also think that there needs to be a caveat to that statement, and that is that everybody stinks when you first get started. Like, as a chiropractor, like, you're getting out of school, and there's so many things that you've never actually done as a chiropractor when you get out of school. And when you started your first practice, even if you've worked as an associate with somebody else, there's so many things that you haven't actually done. And so, for example, when you get out of school, there's so many things that you can and can't do within the context of school, like student clinic. So you're not really managing patients the way that you would in a real practice. You're not managing money. You're not managing people. You're not managing callbacks. You're not managing staff. There's so much that you're not doing. And then if you're an associate in somebody else's practice, a lot of associates get out and they start their own practice, and then they're like, hang on a second. There's so many things that were functioning in that clinic that I never even realized because I never had to do them. Things like even just a budget and taxes and small business stuff. I mean, that's the kicker as a chiropractor. This is the thing I tell people all the time. And anybody that talks to me about wanting to be a chiropractor, I occasionally, it's probably once or twice a year, somebody gets a hold of me that's not a chiropractor and who's thinking about becoming a chiropractor. And I usually tell them the same thing. It's like, if you have to understand that your path to success as a chiropractor is going to be through owning a small business. If you don't want to do that, it's going to be very difficult for you to make an income that would warrant the amount of time and energy and money you're going to spend to become a chiropractor. Most of the time, there are exceptions to the rule, but most of the time, you're not going to make a 6-figure plus income as an associate. And considering how much time, effort, and money it requires to become a chiropractor, I think that should be considered bare minimum. I mean, if you were a nurse practitioner, you would go out of school and get a 6-figure job, or pretty darn close to that. Maybe even more. 120, 130, 150. Those jobs do exist as a nurse practitioner. There are other professions that I would say would be, a similar thing, or even maybe a lesser, time, effort, and energy and money to become that profession. And you can go out and you can get a job and you can make $100,000, $120,000, and that doesn't exist in chiropractic. And I'm not crapping on the fact that it doesn't exist in chiropractic. There's a lot of reasons for that. How much chiropractors get reimbursed by insurance probably has a lot to do with it. But the reality is that if you want to be a successful chiropractor, you're going to have to be a small business owner. If you're going to be a small business owner, unless you happen to have some sort of training or background that most people don't, you're going to start your life as a small business owner having no idea how to be a small business owner. It really is a different skill set. And the way that I always will tell people to think about this, because for whatever reason, and this is not just a chiropractic thing, for whatever reason, if you take someone who's good at working on cars, or someone who's good at baking cakes, or someone who's good at adjusting patients, or whatever, they have their craft that they're good at. And you tell them like, hey, you have to own your own business. There's something in their brain for most people that doesn't think it's that big of a deal. Yeah, I could do that. You'll hear people at jobs that'll be like, my boss doesn't know, the owner doesn't have any idea what he's doing. I run this place. But they don't realize that owning a business is a different skill than running the business, like operating the actual service that you're providing. And the easiest way to think about it is, if somebody went to school to get an MBA, to get a business degree, and that person walked across the stage and they got their degree, and the dean or whoever shook their hand, handed them their degree, and said, "Congratulations, now go be a chiropractor." You would say, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to do that?" And the same thing would be true if that person walked across the stage and you shook their hand and said, "Okay, now go be a mechanic, go be a baker, start a bakery." And they're like, "Well, I don't have any idea how to bake a cake. I don't have any idea how to fix a car. I don't have any idea how to adjust a spine." Yeah, because the thing they learned in school, which is small, business stuff, MBA, whatever, that's not the same skill as baking a cake, fixing a car, or adjusting patients. So anytime you start your practice, and this is also why I'm such an advocate of the micro practice model, is because you're going to do something that's difficult. Start a small business, get it to where it's stable, grow it to where it's successful. That's difficult. I don't care what the actual business is. It's difficult to do unless you're selling pot. And then it's probably pretty easy. The regulations are probably the problem there, but marketing's not really an issue. I think you just put out a sign and have like a vending machine full of Cheetos. Anyway, I digress. If you're going to start a small business and make it successful, it's going to be difficult. And because of that, putting yourself in a more difficult situation with high overhead, high expenses, stuff like that doesn't make any sense. That's why I like the micro practice model. But anytime you're getting started as a small business owner, you're going to put yourself in a situation where there's a whole bunch of things that you've never done before. And guess what? When you've never done stuff before, you suck at it. Everyone sucks at everything when they do it the first time. Now, this is where I will split hairs about this discussion. The people who are going to be great at things, they suck less when they start than someone who's not going to be great. And I'll use Michael Jordan as an example because he is the greatest basketball player of all time. Anyone who says it's LeBron James is an idiot and has never watched Michael Jordan play. I feel very strongly about that. So when Michael Jordan picked up a basketball for the first time, and I don't know how old he was, let's say he was 6 years old. When he picked up a basketball for the first time, if you were to compare him to every other 6-year-old in his neighborhood, in his town that picked up a basketball for the first time, I would venture to guess he had some skills and some talents. And there was this kind of sign of like something to come that was there. And nobody was going to say, oh, he's going to be the greatest basketball player of all time. But there's like little Johnny who's like, oh my gosh, Johnny doesn't know how to play ball at all. And then there's little Michael who's like, he's fast. He's pretty good with his hands. I could see this with my own kids. I have two older boys. Like my two older boys are both teenagers. And I could see with them, my oldest boy, who's 16, is interested in playing sports even more than the 14-year-old. But my 14-year-old is probably better kind of naturally at sports than the 16-year-old. And so it's like, I can look at them even as their dad, and I could say like, they both have interest in sports to a different degree. They both play sports to a different degree. They didn't start at the same point. Like it's even my daughter, when she was playing, she's in college now, but when my daughter started playing, she was very uncoordinated when she first started doing any sort of sport or any sort of anything. Like it was just a very uncoordinated kid. And she worked on those things and she got much better. Was she ever going to get paid to play sports? No. My 16-year-old, who I would look at and say, he has gotten so much better at sports than I honestly ever thought he would. Like where I saw him start, I just saw him struggle a lot. And I saw him like, he really wanted to play sports and he really wanted to be good at it. And he really enjoyed it. But he just was like, barely making the team kind of kid. And now I watch him and I'm like, man, you are so much better than what I ever thought you would be. Is he ever going to get paid to play sports? No. And my 14-year-old, who's probably the most naturally gifted in terms of like that skill you need to play sports, he's never going to get paid to play sports because number one, his starting point still isn't good enough. And two, he's not all that interested. Now, I say all that not to talk about my kids, but to say that the same principle applies whether you're running a small business, you're adjusting patients, you're doing people management, you're doing your whatever. There's all kinds of things within a practice that you're going to have to start doing that whatever your starting point is, even if you're going to be a legend, when you first start, you stink compared to where you're going to be. Now, I think that there's some mistakes that people can make within this framework. Because the reality is that there are some things within the chiropractic space and owning a small business, there are some things that you have to become competent at. You can't just accept the fact that, well, I stink. Jerry said when you stink at stuff, it's never going to move the needle, so I'm not going to work at it anymore. Sometimes you have to be like my kids, where it's like they worked really hard and they went from stinking to being competent, to being pretty good sports players. Are they great? No, they're not. They never were going to be great. But did they become competent? Yes. And if they wanted to play on a team, it was sort of required that they become competent, because if you further on you go, the older you get, the higher you get in like within the sports world, if you can't maintain competence, you don't get to play. And this is also true. Like I got my Bills, my Bills hoodie on, go Bills. And within the context of even professional sports, there are people in professional sports who are great. Josh Allen being one of them. But there are also a bunch of people on the Bills team and every single team in the NFL who are just competent professional football players. They might play 3, 4, 5 snaps a game. They might sit on the bench and only play when someone gets injured. They are competent at that level of what they are doing. And if they weren't, they would not be able to play at all. They wouldn't be on a team. They wouldn't be able to play. They would be somebody who flamed out in high school or somebody who flamed out in college because they didn't get to that level. So I say all that to say, when you're a small business owner and as a chiropractor and as someone who wants to reach some level of success, sort of functioning on your own, you have to take certain things and you have to raise them to a level of competence. Because when you're first getting started, you aren't competent. You suck. You're below competent. You absolutely stink at everything. Now, the things that you're going to be great at, you're going to blow through competence into greatness relatively quickly and easy compared to other people because it's just one of your areas of gifting. And I do think that if you have an area of gifting that you're exceptional at, those are the things that you should try to leverage because those are the things that are going to move the needle the most. The people who are on the stages and the people who are doing the best, the people who are the best in your town, they are exceptional at things that make a big difference in their practice and they're leveraging those things. That still is true. But what they're not doing is they're not leaving their suckiness at suckiness level on things that are of core importance. They are raising the floor of where they started to a level of competence for the core things that are important for their practice. So here are just some mistakes. I'm going to kind of read through these. I have 4 things. I have 4 things that I think are just sort of mistakes. I'm just going to run through these really quick. This sort of goes along with the stuff I've been saying already. So when you get started and you suck at everything, you just suck at everything that you're doing. Mistake number 1 is being okay with mediocrity. This is sort of what I was saying already, but it's like, just because you're difficult at something or just because something is difficult to do and you're not doing it well, that doesn't mean you have to be crappy at it forever. And it definitely doesn't mean it's okay to leave it that way, especially if it's something that's important. So just don't take the fact that you stink at something. We live in a world where people don't seem to like resistance. They don't like difficulty. And I don't know where that comes from. I mean, I talked to somebody yesterday that was interested in a website and I sort of made a comment. I don't remember what the exact comment was, but I kind of made a joke about, the resistance is necessary. It's like, if I don't have a little kickback in my life, I just get weak. And it's true for everyone. It's, so you need that resistance. And if you fold every time something is difficult, you're just not going to be a successful chiropractor. You just aren't. You are getting on a path. There is no easy path to become a small business owner, chiropractor, owning your own practice. There's no easy path. There's easier ways and harder ways, but there's no easy path. So you can't be okay with mediocrity. You can't fold every time something is difficult. You have to be willing to kind of push through. So that's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, which is similar, is giving up too early. This is true for a lot of marketing that I see what chiropractors do. They'll kind of take off in a direction. Oh, that didn't, they gave it a week. That didn't work. And then they kind of have an all or nothing approach to what they're doing. Generally speaking, if you have a good philosophy or good plan for things that you're doing, they're still not going to be perfect. And one of the things that I try to emphasize to people all the time is the process of deciding, should I keep it? Should I tweak it? Or should I scrap it? Like that sort of process is something that you're going to be going through the entire time that you're a small business owner, the entire time that you're a chiropractor. So you might do this on a quarterly basis. You might do it semi-annual. You might do it on a yearly basis. But there needs to be a time in your practice where you sit down and look at what you're doing and saying, okay, I'm spending money on this. I'm doing this with new patients. I'm doing this with retention. I'm doing this with recalls. I'm doing this with reviews. Do we keep it? Is it working great? High five, it's awesome. Do we tweak it because we think it could be better and we're going to try something different? Or do we scrap it because we've done all we can do, or it's run its course? Like it was good before, it's not good now because the environment has changed. AI has come over and taken over everything, whatever. There's some reason why we would need to scrap it. Those are difficult questions that you're going to have to ask with everything that you do. And even with staff, do we keep them? Do we train them up? do we fire them? You know what I mean? Like, it's keep it, tweak it, scrap it. Like, that question should be asked all the time. I think a lot of times people give up too early. I think mistake number 3 is that people assume that they have to be great. And this is sort of why I did this podcast to begin with, is I was sort of indicating that, the great things are what's going to move the needle. And I actually don't listen to a lot of my own podcasts. I did go back and listen to, I think it was the last one that I was kind of talking about this. And I sort of said, I just wanted to make sure that people don't think that they have to be great at everything. You just don't. It's entirely possible that you're not great in the grand scheme of things. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. It's possible that you're not great. Like I say, Josh Allen's great. Josh Allen's great compared to every quarterback in the entire world. And he's great compared to every chiropractor or every, quarterback. Did I say chiropractor? He might be a chiropractor. He's not. So Josh Allen is great compared to every quarterback in the NFL. Josh Allen's great compared to every quarterback that has ever played the NFL. Now, is he the greatest ever? No. But when saying like great quarterbacks, he falls into a category that's like, when we say great, we mean great, capital G, great. Now, when you talk about your greatness, it's entirely possible that your greatness isn't anywhere close to that, and you're never going to be good at anything like that compared to all the chiropractors in your town or in the United States, in the world, or that have ever existed. It's entirely possible that that's not going to happen. So what you need to understand is that you can't assume that you're going to be exceptional at something or everything, or that you even need to be exceptional. Competence and consistency can take you really, really, really far. That's the floor of your practice. You want to stop having the ups and downs. You want to raise your business to a level where it's stable. Competency and consistency. I know that's boring. I know that's not sexy. I know that is just not the thing that puts butts in seats in seminars. But consistency and competency. If you can do that, you're going to raise the floor of your business, and you're going to kind of smooth out some of those ups and downs that are kind of like, I can eat, can't eat, I can eat, can't eat. Those are crappy months. Like, we don't want to do that. So don't assume you have to be great. Understand that consistency is going to be really, really important in a lot of cases. Last thing I'm going to say is this is sort of the last mistake that people make. And I sort of alluded to this already because I sort of kind of talked about a lot of these things, is that you're misunderstanding that greatness is relative. It's sort of like I said with Josh Allen. It's like, you can look at someone like that, or Michael Jordan, or you can look at people that are just great, 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 great. Like, they're great no matter what context you're putting them in. They're great. That's not most people. It's not me. I'm not great at anything on that level compared to anything in my life. Like, there's zero things in my life that I am great on the grand scheme of things. I'm just not. It's, so what you need to do is you need to figure out what you're great at relative to the things that you are competent or you suck at. There are plenty of things in my life that I am better at than other things. I talked to you guys about, I don't think I've ever told you guys, I am the worst speller in the world. Like, I have a buddy of mine from chiropractic college who he brags about winning a spelling bee when he was younger, and he gives me crap all the time about, like, I'll have spelling mistakes and whatever. And I try to, like, if I text him and I misspell something, I try to blame it on the fat fingers or whatever. But it's most likely I misspelled it because I am the worst speller. And if I judged my intelligence and my self-worth and all of that stuff based on my ability to spell, it would be devastating. I'm such a bad speller that when I was in a school, the whole school, so it was like multiple grades, was doing this spelling bee that they made us do it. Like, it wasn't like you had to volunteer. It was like a whole school thing. Everybody had to participate. This little school that I went to, it wasn't a big school. And I went to this little Christian school, and everybody in the whole school, all the grades, had to participate in the same spelling bee, and I was the first one out. And there were kids much younger than me. And so the little seating area where you sit down and you're like, go sit over there, you spelled wrong. I'm the first one over there. So I say that to say there are things that I'm terrible at. There are also things I'm pretty good at. And even podcasting, it's like I'm not the world's greatest podcaster. I don't have the biggest podcast. I don't even have the biggest chiropractic podcast. But am I better at this now than I was 5 years ago? Yeah, I think so. Am I better at websites than I was 5 years ago? Yeah, absolutely. Am I better at local SEO than I was 5 years ago? Yeah. So I think it's important to understand that greatness is relative. And what you need to do when I say like the great things are going to be moving the needle in your life, you need to look at yourself and say, what are the things that I'm really good at, better than most, or even just better than the best things that I have to offer, even if I'm not better than most, even if I'm never going to be the greatest adjuster in my town, maybe that's the thing that I am best at. And it's like, okay, how do I improve that? How do I get better at that? I'm really good at making videos. Well, am I ever going to be Mr. Beast? No. But can I leverage this to grow my practice? Yeah. And can I get better at it? Yeah. And is it one of my better skills? Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. Let's figure that out. That's how I want you to look at greatness. I don't want you to look at it in comparison to like who's the greatest in the world at this and can I do that? Like, if I looked at podcasting and I said, this is my 500 and I don't know how many episodes for like the Rocket Chiro podcast. If I looked at Joe Rogan and I was just like, oh, that's what great podcasting looks like, and I can't be great, so I'm not going to podcast. I'm good enough at podcasting that this is the main source for my business. And my business wouldn't exist if it weren't for the podcasting, because the vast majority of people that come to me have watched or listened to one of my podcasts. And that's where my business comes from. So am I ever going to be the greatest podcaster ever? No. Am I ever going to be the greatest chiropractic podcaster ever? Probably not. That's a lot lower bar, but probably not. Is it worth me doing and improving upon and figuring out ways to leverage it because it benefits my business? Yes. And so that's what I mean. And that's what I mean when I say like focus on your greatness. Is what are you good at? What makes a difference in your practice? What comes easier? Or is it patient communication? Is it adjusting? The things you need to be competent at, things like clinical skills. I mean, it's, clinical competency, small business ownership, doing budgets, dealing with people, managing people. There's certain things you have to be competent at. But within those things, you're going to see some things that you excel at. Identify those things and leverage them to get the most out of it. So those are my thoughts, guys. I mean, I just wanted to sort of clarify because I don't ever want to give someone advice that takes them down a wrong path because they assume that when things are difficult that, I must not be good at that, so I'm just not going to do it. Or if I suck at that, so I'm not going to work on it because Jerry said that when you suck, you just go from sucking to sucking less. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe I should say you can go from sucking to competent. And sometimes that's what you need to do because there are certain things you have to be competent at. So I just wanted to clarify. I want to be encouraging to you guys because I know that starting a practice is hard. I know running a practice is hard. I know becoming successful is hard. I know that getting a practice stable is hard because you can have really good months and really bad months. So I just want to be encouraging to you guys who are listening to just have good thought process, have good principles, have a good process where you're thinking about what you're doing and then make good decisions. So I'm done. I'll shut up. I'll talk to you guys on the next episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you know a chiropractor that would benefit from the podcast, please share it with them. If you want to leave a review, you can do it in Apple Podcasts or on Google. Either one is fine. If you want to check out more about me, go to rocketchiro.com. Reach out to me through there. I'd be happy to help you however I can. I'll talk to you guys on the next episode. See ya.